What's going on everyone and welcome to the channel. My name's Jack, I'm a chef by trade and my whole purpose for this channel is to give you 100% confidence in the kitchen as well as teach you absolutely everything I know. In this one we're going to be creating a delicious creamy and smooth pumpkin ice cream without any fancy equipment or machines, and this one's a bit of a festive recipe which is perfect for Halloween, Thanksgiving or really any day of the week. Please sit back, relax and enjoy. Alright guys, let's start this off with a quarter of a Kent or Japanese pumpkin that weighs 400 grams or 14.1 ounces, and all we want to do with this is wrap it up in some aluminium or aluminum foil, however you'd like to pronounce it, just until it's nice and tight. This will allow for the pumpkin to steam and not colour, which is what we want for this recipe. Once that's done, place the pumpkin onto a baking tray lined with some parchment paper which will reduce dishes if any moisture happens to leak out, and place this in a preheated oven set to 180 degrees Celsius or 350 degrees Fahrenheit for 45 to 50 minutes or until the pumpkin is extremely soft. 45 minutes later we can then carefully remove the pumpkin from the oven, switch the oven off as that's all we need to use it for, and place the tray onto a wire rack or heat resistant surface and allow the pumpkin to cool down to room temperature. Once your pumpkin is at room temperature, we can then use a spoon to scoop out the seeds, and if you'd like to, you can save the seeds which can then be roasted for some homemade pepitas, or alternatively, you can dry these out and grow your very own pumpkins. Anyway, once that's done, we then want to scoop out the pumpkin flesh into a medium to large size mixing bowl, making sure not to get any of the skin in the bowl, and with the skin, we can place it into a compost bin. We can then proceed by adding in 1 teaspoon or 2 grams of ground cinnamon for a sweet and woody flavour, half a teaspoon or 0.8 grams of ground ginger for a peppery and floral flavour, 1/4 of a teaspoon or 0.4 grams of ground allspice for a warm and earthy flavour, 1/8 of a teaspoon or 0.2 grams of ground cloves for a slightly bittersweet flavour and a really nice aroma, 1/4 of a teaspoon or 0.4 grams of freshly grated nutmeg for a warm spice as well as a nutty and slightly sweet flavour, and finally 1 can, 395 grams or 14 ounces of sweetened condensed milk for that deliciously sweet flavour and creamy texture. Once all of those ingredients are in, we can then give it a really good thorough mix, making sure that all of the spices are evenly distributed throughout, and with the pumpkin, just mash it down a little bit, but it doesn't matter if there are a few little chunks as it adds nice little bursts of flavour, and then you should end up with something that looks like this, which we can then pop aside. Now in a separate mixing bowl, pour in 2 cups or 500 milliliters of thickened full fat cream, which is also known as whipping cream, thickened cream, heavy cream and pourable double cream, and with this, all we want to do is whisk this to form stiff peaks which will take roughly 2 to 3 minutes. Alternatively, you can use a stand or handheld mixer to do this, just do whatever's easiest for you. Anyway, once that's done and the cream has formed stiff peaks, we can then proceed by gently adding the cream into the pumpkin mix, making sure to fully scrape the bowl out to avoid any wastage. Once that's in, gently fold the whipped cream through the pumpkin mix, being careful not to knock the air out of the cream, as this is what creates a nice fluffy and smooth ice cream, and once that's done, you'll have a nice creamy mixture that looks like this. We now want to pour the mixture into a freezable container or baking tin, which is what I'm using here, but with whatever you choose to use, just keep in mind that the wider or larger it is, it's going to be a lot thinner, which will make it harder to scoop when it's set. We can then gently smoothen out the top using a spatula or spoon, just to ensure that it's evenly spread out. Place on a piece of parchment paper over the top, which will also help level it out as well as prevent any ice crystals from forming whilst it's freezing, and we can then place this in the freezer from anywhere between 6 to 24 hours to allow it to fully set. So this has now been 24 hours and our ice cream is nice and set. We can then remove the parchment paper, which we can use again when we place it back in the freezer. Get yourself a warm ice cream scoop or spoon and scoop out however much ice cream your heart desires. You can then serve this up however you'd like by placing it in a bowl, on a plate, or just leaving it in the baking tin or container. It's completely up to you, and this then leads to the best part about making anything, which is that we can then dig in. You definitely have to try this one. The pumpkin is so smooth and adds the most amazing texture to the ice cream, and that spice mix just adds some serious flavour, which really is fantastic. This recipe serves anywhere between 2 to 6 people, depending on how much you'd like to eat yourself. And to store it, just leave it in the freezer in the same container that you made it in, where it will last up to 4 months. I really hope you enjoyed this video and I was able to teach you something. If you did, be sure to smash that like button and consider subscribing to see hundreds of more fantastic recipes. Thanks for watching everyone, stay safe and enjoy.